Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. We are dealing with poor lighting. It's been dark and overcast for the past couple days, so I need to get this filmed because I have a ton of books here to haul from the past couple months, and it looks like an awful lot. I am the only person that feels like on BookTube who is like embracing needing to buy more books. Not that I need more books, but I really wanted to focus my buying this year and increase it going toward indies and things I really loved, as well as self-published works. So there's a lot of that in here. However, I also did kind of break my plans in that I wanted to cut down on purchasing my books from charity sales and just getting a whole load of books. I did okay. But I did go to the Jewish Community Center book sale. It's smaller, it's in like a meeting room rather than these big gym sales that I usually go to, but they always have a lot of really good stuff. So even though I went at the very end, the last day, in the last 2 hours, after it was already well picked over, it was $5 fill a bag day. So I had to fill a bag. It's just required. So out of the physical books that I have here, I do have physical books and ebooks, I've got 25, which sounds like a lot, but 12 of those were from $5 fill a bag day. So I didn't do that bad. I kind of grabbed some things I maybe wouldn't have otherwise if I were being super duper choosy. And they're things I will at least try. And if I don't like them, they can just go into a little free library somewhere. Not a big deal. So they might come in and go out without any mention, but I should at least haul them and let you know why I picked them up to some degree. So anyway, let's start with the actual brand new stuff, because I did buy a few brand new books, which is uncommon-ish for me, but again, along the line of wanting to pick up more of my favorites and stuff. You'll see several of these were from my favorites of last year. So let's start with The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. This is kind of far future science fiction, mostly in space with some hopping around planets. I adored this. This was a favorite of last year. I've already talked about it. I did a standalone review, so you can check that out down below. Then, of course, naturally, because I love that one, I got his new book. This is The Spear Cuts Through Water. So this is not sci-fi. This is, I believe, fantasy. I know nothing about it other than that the people who loved Vanished Birds seem to be loving this as well. So I'm ready to go into it kind of blind, not knowing anything. However, I'm very, very glad that I actually sprung for not waiting for the paperback and got the hardcover, because look at these end papers. I am in awe. I want this like tattooed on my body. It's so gorgeous. So very happy with that purchase. And then I've got a number of books from my best of list that you've already seen. I have The Beauty by Elia Whiteley, which is a combo of two novellas. They're both very speculative. One's kind of a weird horror, obviously sort of a fungal horror that you can see on here, creepy feminist story. And the other one is a linguistic anthropological sci-fi, and I adored both of them. And then we have another weird sci-fi, and that is The Employees by Olga Ravin, and translated by, I believe, Martin Aiken. Yeah, Martin Aiken. And this is weird sci-fi, kind of akin to Annihilation, and it's told in statements from employees on board a spaceship as they've brought some objects from a planet onto their spaceship. It's sort of very mundane. There's not a lot of action, and it's very conceptual, I would say. Then another favorite. This is a Regency historical fantasy, Miss Percy's Guide to the Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons. Very long title, by Quenby Olson. And I adored this one. It's great. It's all about this Regency setting, a spinster who inherits, unknown to her, a dragon egg. And she doesn't know until it hatches. So then she has to figure out how to deal with this baby dragon and what she's gonna do, how to raise it. And so she starts writing a guide, obviously. And of course, people will not leave her settled with having a dragon. Everyone wants to take her inheritance from her. So naturally, now the second book is out, and that is Miss Percy's Travel Guide to the Welsh Moors and Feral Dragons by Quenby Olson. So this came out end of last year. I'm very excited to get into it. I, again, haven't looked into the synopsis at all, but I'm assuming it's going to be the continued adventures of Miss Percy and her baby dragon. And then we have what I think is going to be not quite cozy, but hopeful science fiction, A Slice of Mars by Garrett Cash. It's a big chunky one. I was not expecting it to be quite this chunky, but I'm all on board for this. I had been hearing about this as it was being written and was so looking forward to it. So I bought it as soon as it came out. And the tag is corporate overlords, capitalism, and even aging are things of the past in a planet increasingly brimming with biodiversity. Yet pizzerias are in short supply. So I think this is largely going to be about some drama surrounding people who are starting up a pizzeria on Mars. So I'm very excited for that one. And then we have kind of the start of my secondhand stuff. And beginning with Dear Millie by Wilhelm Grimm and art by Maurice Sendak. Now this is actually not a very pretty copy. I grabbed this out of the little free library without even opening it, thinking, well, I can just read through it even if it's in bad condition. I'm always interested in looking at Maurice Sendak's art. However, I am so glad I grabbed this because the interior art is in absolute perfect condition, and I will try to insert some clips as well. But the interior art is so very lovely. So I'm really, really thrilled that I picked this up because that is, even though the dust jacket's not in great condition, a great prize for my collection. I love having these sort of classic works. I have a golden key edition over here somewhere, illustrated by Maurice Sendak as well. That's just something I really love to have in my collection. Then we're shifting into the books from the Jewish Community Center sale and the $5 fill-a-bag. I got a lot of history and nonfiction because everything was so picked over that I actually did have a chance to go through everything they still had remaining there. So I was there at the very end of the sale, and that was actually kind of good. It pushed me away from just spending my whole time in the fiction areas and looking around at other stuff, and they actually had a lot of really good nonfiction, so I'm quite happy with that. First, we have Globalization by Manfred B. Stenger. And this is from the Oxford A Very Short Introduction series. I have a number of these. They're tiny books. They're really focused, but sort of high-level overviews of a certain topic, and they are written by different authors who specialize in that topic. So I don't specifically have an interest in globalization, but I always make sure to pick these up when I see them secondhand cheaply because they're really great and informative on whatever topic they're covering. So I always sort of take something away, even if it's a really niche topic. So I'm happy to have this in my collection. They are really well made. There are often illustrations throughout and very nicely formatted so you can dip in for a couple of pages here and there as you need to. So they're perfect for exactly what they're intending to do. And then we have one I didn't think I ever would pick up, but it's The Art of War by Sun Tzu and an intro by James Clavell. This is a very nice little copy. It seems like it's brand new. And I don't think I ever would have had any interest in this if I hadn't just read Sun Tzu in space. And that had a number of quotes from The Art of War for obvious reasons, because it's talking about military and political strategy, and that kind of piqued my interest. And it's such a short little thing. I was like, yeah, I could pick that up and read that in the weekend easily. So grabbed it, and again, it was $5 to fill a bag. Another one that I don't think I would have picked up under any other circumstances is Confident Pluralism, and this is Surviving and Thriving Through Deep Difference by John D. Inazow. Now, I truly don't believe I really ever would have picked something like this up just for myself if I were purchasing it without another stack of books, but I definitely am fully on board with the idea of needing to be able to survive even when we have very strong differences. So this one says, Inazu addresses a question as old as our republic and as current as protests in Ferguson. With such strongly felt differences, how can Americans live together as one people? In words both scholarly and inspiring, he confronts the notion that we serve the good of the whole when we silence voices of the few. So it sounds like something I will be able to at least learn something from, or have a lot of thought provoked out of it. I don't know if it's something I'll be picking up right away, but it's definitely a topic I'm interested in. Then a popular one, and this was actually a Goodwill pickup. For $2 from Goodwill, I grabbed Devil in the White City by Eric Larson, and this is a new copy. The spine is not broken. There's a little bend down here, but it's perfect. So most people probably know what this is. This is a very popular nonfiction author. In this case, he's writing about the confluence of a serial killer and the Chicago World's Fair. So I don't really want to know it much more than that. I've seen loads of people review this, so I'm sure you can find more details. Then a really interesting one that, again, I would have never picked up if it weren't for the $5 fill-a-bag, and that is Longitudes and Latitudes by Thomas L. Friedman. And the subheading is Exploring the World After September 11th. So he is the winner of the 2002 Pulitzer Prize for Commentary, Foreign Affairs columnist for the New York Times. So as I understand, and this is a really beautiful copy, it's in perfect condition. This is the columns that he wrote leading up to 2001, so in the late 2000s, and in through 2001 as everything was going on, leading up to September 11th and post September 11th. So I think this is going to add a ton of context to my understanding of that. I was not at all aware of foreign affairs in general as that was going on. I was in college at the time. And one of the most interesting things that happened at my university as a result of this, I was sort of honorarily part of the honors literature program. And in that program, there was a non-Western cultures course. Usually they focused on Asian cultures, but in response to the outcome of September 11th, they shifted that and did Middle Eastern culture and specifically Islam. As well as other things leading up to, the confluence of cultures involved there. And that was so interesting because I did get to take that course and really learn a lot about something at a Christian university. That was probably the only exposure I would have ever had to any ideas about Islamic faith. And it was a great group, a very small course. I think there were less than 10 people in the course. But we got to learn a lot about that and contextualize it. So I think this is really going to help even further contextualize it for me. Then another interesting one, I think I've seen this type of book before, but not this specific one, and this is Shakespeare's Restless World, a portrait of an era in 20 objects by Neil MacGregor. And it does say he's the author of A History of the World in 100 Objects. So this is super duper cool. It's got pictures all throughout of art and items and all kinds of cool stuff. So I think this is going to give context for Shakespeare at the time that he lived through these items and give us a lot of detail. Then this one is kind of a little scary, but it has really fabulous maps. Let me see if I can find the map. So loads and loads of maps up front. I love a map. And this is The Fatal Shore by Robert Hughes. The Epic of Australia's Founding. So I've never heard of this, but apparently it's, a pretty well-held book, and it's real thick. So I think that's a topic I don't know anything about, so I'm happy to have this on my shelves to grab at any point once I do feel like picking it up. Because, this is something, again, I'm so underexposed to a lot of international topics and history. So very thrilled to have that. That's a nonfiction. And the final, no, this is not the final nonfiction. We got one more nonfiction. This is A Distant Mirror by Barbara Tuchman. Surprise, surprise. I grabbed this just in time for Steve Tiberius Donahue book club, but I don't have time to read this much. I've been so slowly reading lately that if I were to read this right now, it would be the only thing I'm reading. And I don't want to do that. I'm having fun with a lot of the stuff I'm reading. So this one is going to get saved for eventually sometime. And the dust jacket is going to need a little reinforcing. But I did find another copy without a dust jacket before I grabbed this one. And so I was thrilled to find one that did actually have this lovely, lovely cover. This is history about the 14th century. And I think it has to do very much with talking about what the life of a common person would be during that time and really the difficulties that they go through. So I'm, again, very, very interested in that from a historical perspective. Then I think the last nonfiction is French Dirt, The Story of a Garden in the South of France by Richard Goodman. I don't know how I never see anybody talk about this, and this is just a lovely copy, and it's got deckled edges. But this looks just completely delightful and calming. It's all about this man who takes a year off and moves to a stone house after seeing a classified. And it's in the south of France, it's sort of a fictionalized city, or it has a false name, but it's the real story of his life there. This is a letter from MFK Fisher to Richard Goodman. Dear Richard Goodman, I possess a deep prejudice against anything written by Anglo-Saxons about their lives in or near French villages, especially in Provence. I really cannot stand the lip-licking enjoyment of local peasantry by these visitors of America and England. So Richard, I thank you for breaking the spell. I like very much what you wrote. It does not sound supercilious at all. All my best, MFK Fisher. So this sounds like it's going to be mundane. It's going to be about him meeting the community in this small French village and connecting with growing his own things in the dirt there. French dirt is about sun, dirt, water, about work, about elation and defeat, about the sublime pleasures of having a small piece of French land, roughly 30 feet by 40 feet, all to oneself to garden. It is about Richard Goodman's garden crop, some lettuce, to be sure, some cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, and parsley, and the very slow-growing friendship of the villagers, Goodman's fellow farmers, the garden's richest yield. Sounds like cozy goodness, which we will get back to more of. Next one is a bit random, and that is Love Stories. This is including an introduction by Rosamund Pilcher, and the authors we have are Rosamund Pilcher, John Updike, Colette, Guy de Maupassant, Daphne du Maurier, Elizabeth Bowen, Edith Wharton, and Ivan Turgenev. So I think this is going to be a mix of sort of romantic and heartbreaking stories. It says, in these stories we find the sweetness of rose-tinted romance hovering around the sourness of love betrayed. We revel in both love in bloom and love mellowing in the autumn affair. Each of these beautifully crafted and atmospheric short stories demonstrates the power of ageless love. So I'm here for it for the authors that are in it. It maybe wouldn't interest me otherwise, but again, this was a $5 fill-a-bag, and it's probably worth it to at least try. Then we've got, and I don't even know if this is actually the first in series. This is 5 Quarters of the Orange by Joanne Harris. I think this might be in the setting of the chocolat world, but I think this can be read on its own. We're following a woman who has returned to the village her mother is from, and she has inherited, I believe, her mother's creperie and her mother's cookbook of recipes or baking recipes. And so nobody knows who she is there, but she starts up baking all of these wonderful baked goods. So yeah, I think this is going to be very delightful, atmospheric. I love Joanne Harris's writing, but I don't think I have read anything in this particular universe if it is from the Chocolat series. So I would love to jump into that, even if it is with this book. We'll see if it works on its own. Then we have Astonish Me by Maggie Shipstead. So this one I basically grabbed just because it's Maggie Shipstead. I didn't know anything about it. Was like, oh, what's that? And it's an older work of hers. She obviously has gained recent fame for her book, The Something Circle. I'm blanking on it. The Great Circle, that's what it is. So that has skyrocketed her all over BookTube. Everyone seems to be loving that. It's historical fiction. This one seems a little bit historical and a little bit modern. So this jumps back into the 70s when we are following kind of a main character who was a ballerina, which that was the second thing that immediately was like, okay, I don't care what this is actually about. I'm gonna grab it because it's got ballet in it. So a ballerina who in the 70s helped a prima dancer escape from Russia, effectively, into the US. And so then she sort of walks away from the ballet world entirely, moves on with her life, starts a family. But then her son turns out to be this ballet prodigy. And so she gets swept back in, reconnected with this premier danseur, and all of it ensues, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm on board for that. I don't really care if it's amazing. Yeah, I'm here for a ballet book always. Then we have a couple of middle grade. So this was again the $5 fill-a-bag. We have Jacqueline Woodson Harbor Me. I don't think I would have been interested in this one if it weren't for the $5 fill-a-bag, because this one is just mainly a contemporary about these teens who I think are in a counseling group, and they realize that they can really open up and be direct about what they're going through with this small group of other kids in this counseling group. So it's, I think, a lot about them just sitting around talking. And I want to at least try it, though, because I have read Jacqueline Woodson before. She's a phenomenal writer and poet, and I want to try it. If I don't like it, it can go into the little free library near me that is very dominantly for kids. So I think they will appreciate this, and it probably will go there even if I do read it. And then a brand new copy of Frog Kisser by Garth Nix. This is a Goodwill find, so this was $2 for a brand new hardback. And I don't know very much about this. I love Garth Nix. The Sabriel / Abhorsen series is one of my favorite YA series of all time. This one seems to be about a girl who runs into a talking dog and a boy who is maybe in the body of a newt. So she somehow gets caught up in this very folkloric, fantastical tale and probably has to kiss some frogs. So yeah, I don't really need to know more than that to want to read it. Then we are getting into my couple of books I have from my Coffee House Press subscription. I purchased their fall and winter and spring catalogs because they are a publisher who's an indie that kind of focus on stuff that doesn't quite fit in any one category of genre. It's really broad. So we got a couple poetry this time around. So the first one is Your Kingdom by Eleni Sikolanos. And this one sounds really intriguing. From what I have sort of sifted through here and looked at, it seems like it's very contemporary styled nature writing. So yeah, Eleni Sikolanos is a master of mixing genres. So genre mixing, genre blending is definitely catnip for me. Further bends time and space in Your Kingdom, an ode to our more than human animal origins. She studies the wild roots of our past, present, and future. Sikolanos, one of our foremost practitioners of eco-poetic exploration, finds solace in the complexity of our natural lineage as we face the environmental precarity of the present. So it sounds very interesting. I do like nature poetry. I tend to not like very contemporary poetry, though. So I think this will be mixed. Maybe, we will see. And then another one is Village by Latasha and Nevada Diggs. And this one, I don't know, it's part poetry collection, part soundscape. Village uses dark humor and keen observation to explore the roots of memory, grief, and estrangement. So there are some very strange formatting in here and photos as well. So I think this is reflecting on the author's relationships with family a lot, and it's very experimental. So this one is gonna be real questionable if I'll like it because I'm not a huge poetry reader. But so far of the things I have gotten from Coffee House Press, including one of the poetry collections I got, I've really enjoyed all of it. So I think I'll be able to get something out of this at least. And then finally is kind of an odd nonfiction, but poetry. So this is Bard Kinetic by Anne Waldman. And it is a poetic memoir, as far as I can tell. So Waldman is a very famous poet, obviously. The expansive, countercultural, and wildly prolific life of celebrated poet Anne Waldman in her own words. In Bard Kinetic, Anne Waldman assembles a multifaceted portrait of her life and praxis as a groundbreaking poet. Waldman charts her journey through a maelstrom of radical artistic activity, growing up in Greenwich Village, creative partnership with Allen Ginsberg, touring with Bob Dylan, and founding the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church, and later the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics at Naropa University. She discusses the philosophies that guide her as a writer, activist, performer, instigator, and Buddhist practitioner, and pays homage to friends and collaborators. So I'm interested in the memoir portion. There's a lot of poetry in here sprinkled through, and I don't know if that is biographical, autofiction-y, or what, but it seems interesting at least. It's a little thick as both a poetry book and a memoir, but I'll give it a shot. We will see. Could be very interesting. Next, I got into a big, massive digital haul and a lot of cozy books because I have been deep diving into what's available in the cozy fantasy subgenre, self-published, and I have found so much. So I don't think I, made a big investment here, even though it sounds like a lot. I doubt I spent more than $3 on any of these. And some of them were free as well, and so just pick them up, and I'm willing to give them a shot, see if they are any good, so I can recommend them to you all. So the first of those is A Coup of Tea by Casey Blair, and it is the first in the Tea Princess Chronicles series. As implied by the title, we have a princess who flees into exile, and she's on the run in hiding and starts working at a tea shop. It sounds like it's in kind of a lower class disaster area where there's a lot of magical problems. So that's all I need to know. The next one is Cursed Cocktails by S.L. Rowland. And yet again, we have this older character who is starting over, who decides to open a cocktail bar or pub because he has acquired this book of cocktail recipes. So that sounds great. It has, I believe, chronic pain rep with our main character who's older here, and it also has a gay romance element potentially. So we will see. The next one is Coffee, Milk, and Spider Silk by Coyote J.M. Edwards. This is really intriguing because it has a spider, or a drider, an 11-foot tall spider type monster protagonist. Now, she is starting a cafe, obviously, and that's super intriguing, but somehow there is also a sapphic romance to this with her, and I think there's a minotaur and a pair of dryads. Sounds super interesting. I'm into it. It's also a novella, so how that's going to be packed into a short package like that, I don't know. Then there's The Bookshop and the Barbarian by Morgan Stang. Very intrigued by this one. So this has got a sapphic romance again, I believe. In this one, we are following this character who is starting over, opening a bookshop, and keeps being beset by squatters. So she hires a barbarian to protect her property. And romance supposedly ensues with this lady barbarian, I believe. So that, again, sounds very intriguing. Next, we have Wild Diplomacy by D.G. Red. So I got this one for free. I think this one is a novella as well. And in this, we are following a gnoll. Gnolls in D&D or role-playing games are generally the sort of hyena-human hybrid. So odd main character, love it, it's great. But he is a diplomat to humans. So that sounds super fun. It sounds like it's got very mundane fantasy, maybe not cozy, but it kind of gave me some cozy vibes in there. But at very least, it's mundane-y fantasy with some bureaucracy, which I love. Then we have a very niche subgenre that I discovered in my deep dive into cozy fantasy. So there is a subgenre of urban fantasy, I would say, that sort of intersects cozy, urban fantasy, and paranormal romance, but also all have the keyword midlife in the title of either the book or the series to trigger to us that there's an over 40 protagonist. And a lot of these have very cozy themes. So the first of those that I picked up is Butter Sugar Magic, and it's the baking a midlife fantasy by Jessica Rosenberg. And yeah, I don't need to know anything else about that, but it sounds like this woman inherits a long lost aunt's bakery and apartment near it, and starts over and realizes, oh, there's a whole magical community here. And so it sounds like it's gonna have a lot of found family vibes and community, all that great stuff. So I think that one's gonna be more on the cozy end. And then there's Magical Midlife Madness by K.F. Breen. It sounds like this one is going to be more toward the urban fantasy side with a little bit of kind of action to it. I don't know, but I'm really curious to see how those go, because there is a whole like world of these over 40 urban fantasy sort of books that I could have tapped into. So these are just the first two. If I like them, I'm going to be like going down that rabbit hole because I love a fully adult protagonist. That's great to me. Then I think we're out of most of the cozy. So the first of the non-cozy, but this one still has a little bit of cozy vibes, is Lord of Stariel by A.J. Lancaster. This is one I got for free, and it is the first of a 5-book series. I think all 5 books are out, and that is the end now. But this is like a fantasy of manners with fae romance. And so it sounds, again, very delightful and mundane, fairly mundane. So the next one that I have is actually a sequel to a series that I've been reading, The Heartstrikers, book number 4, A Dragon of a Different Color by Rachel Aaron. Now, this is the 4th book, so I can't really talk about much into the plot this far in. I thought I already had all the books, but I didn't, and I want to try and finish this series. This is a great series where it is urban fantasy, but it's like a magical future Detroit, and you're in the Detroit free zone where dragons are outlawed. So we have this whole family of dragon shifters, and the youngest, Julius, is not a very good dragon, and his mother is always trying to get him to be a better dragon, to be ruthless, but he just wants to be an academic and a scholar. That's all he wants. He wants to be left alone. He doesn't want to get in any fights. So that's one of the things I love the most about this series is we're in this sort of high action setting where there's a lot of conflict around magic, a lot of power, there's gritty urban fantasy elements, but Julius, our protagonist, will do anything to avoid getting into a fight. He always wants to problem solve his way out, and I love that element about that series. So I've heard the audio is good. I kind of almost want to finish this series and then do a full reread on audio, but for now I just want to finish it up. So I grabbed the ebook so I can continue on this year. And then we have I think the rest are not fantasy or cozy yet. So next one is Hen Fever by Olivia Waite. This is, I believe, a historical Victorian sapphic romance. I read from Olivia Waite before. She generally writes sapphic romances. But this one is all about a chicken contest. So these 2 women meet over, I think, their conflict about competition in this chicken contest. I think this is a novella, so it's gonna be fairly short and have some lovely birds. Then we have Our Doris by Charles Heathcote, who is a fellow booktuber who I enjoy very much. I'm quite sure he's not aware of my channel, so this is not like promotional for him at all, but I did get this for free because he was doing a giveaway. And if you don't know this, somehow on Amazon, if they're giving away their book for free, it still goes toward the metrics of sales. So if they have a blowout in free giveaways, it will add them to like the bestsellers list in their category. So it's always great to do that, even if you're not terribly interested in the book. This one I have heard talked about before and was slightly interested, but not really enough to buy it because it was kind of a gamble. It sounds super mundane. It's all about this older woman in the small town community drama she gets involved in. But the fact that kind of kept me off of it is I think this book is told from her husband's perspective of her, and that's why it's Our Doris. So I do think there's going to be a lot of elements I like there, maybe akin to the misread books that I just recently started getting into. So I would love it if it is, and I will continue on because it's a 4-book series that I think are all out now. So that would be great if I do end up loving it. And then my last one, we're almost done, guys, is Nebula Vibrations by Annie Carl. This is a novella. It's a sci-fi, and I don't remember hardly anything about it. So I'm going to go in pretty blind because it's really, really short. It might even be a novelette. But I do know that several of my friends on the booktubes, Kristen L. SFF Reader, Shannon from That's So Poe, I think someone else, maybe Cousin from Always Doing, I think, all picked it up last year and really enjoyed it. And so I want to check it out. It is one that I think will be eligible for prize voting as a novella. So we will see. If I really like it, it will go into my prize voting because I'm trying to get to as many novellas as I can before all of the prize awarding is happening. So that is it for my MA-HOOO-SSIVE winter book haul. I hope that some of this has interested you in picking up some of these books. Let me know if you've read any of these or if I should really focus on picking up any of these that you're interested in seeing me talk about very soon. I do know that A Slice of Mars and A Spear Cuts Through Water are 2 that I definitely want to get to within the next 2 months or so. So those will be big priorities despite my massive TBRs that I have planned. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks all so much for watching.